In St. Louis, Missouri, there is an old mansion known as the Lemp Mansion, infamous for its dark history and eerie reputation. Built in the 1860s by the Lemp family, the mansion was once a symbol of wealth and success. The Lemp Brewery, founded by the family, was a major player in the beer industry, and the mansion reflected their prosperity with its grand architecture and luxurious interiors. However, the Lemp Mansion's history took a dark turn in the early 20th century. The family suffered a series of tragic events that cast a shadow over their lives and the mansion. The first major blow came in 1904 when William Lemp, the patriarch, died under mysterious circumstances, reportedly from suicide. His death was followed by a series of other tragedies, including the suicides of his son, Frederick, in 1922, and his daughter, Elsa, in 1920. The family's fortunes declined, and the mansion was abandoned in the 1940s. In the 1970s, the Lemp Mansion was reopened as a restaurant and bed and breakfast. Despite its transformation, the mansion retained its reputation for being haunted. Many staff members and guests reported unsettling experiences: flickering lights, cold spots, and disembodied voices. The most chilling stories were about a strange presence that seemed to inhabit the mansion, often linked to the tragic history of the Lemp family. In 1981, a local historian named Robert Greene decided to investigate the Lemp Mansion for a feature article. He was fascinated by the mansion's history and the ghost stories that surrounded it. One evening, he arrived at the mansion to explore and document its eerie atmosphere. The mansion was as imposing as ever, with its grand staircase and ornate woodwork now bathed in the soft glow of the restaurant's lighting. Robert spent time talking to staff members and guests, many of whom shared their experiences with him. The most compelling stories were about strange occurrences in the upper floors, where the family's private quarters had been. Robert decided to explore the upper floors after hours. The restaurant was closed, and the only sounds were the creaking of the old building and the occasional whisper of the wind through the broken windows. He made his way to the third floor, where he found the old family rooms now dusty and neglected. As he wandered through the rooms, Robert noticed a cold draft and a feeling of being watched. He set up his camera and began taking photos of the rooms, hoping to capture some evidence of the paranormal activity. In one of the rooms, he found an old, ornate mirror leaning against the wall. It was covered in dust, but he could see faint, ghostly shapes in the reflection. Robert continued to photograph the rooms, but as he moved from one to the next, he began to feel increasingly uneasy. In one of the bedrooms, he noticed a large, antique bed that looked disturbingly out of place. The bed was perfectly made, though no one had been in the room for decades. Suddenly, Robert heard a faint, whispering voice, though he couldn't make out the words. The temperature in the room dropped significantly, and he saw his breath fog up in the air. He felt a chilling sensation on the back of his neck, as if someone was standing right behind him. Turning around, Robert saw nothing but the empty room. He decided to leave, feeling a growing sense of dread. As he made his way back down the stairs, he heard the distinct sound of footsteps following him, though no one else was in the mansion. Once outside, Robert reviewed the photos he had taken. In one of the images, he saw a shadowy figure standing near the mirror, with a pale, indistinct face. The figure seemed to be watching him, and the image left him with a profound sense of unease. The Lemp Mansion continued to be a source of fascination and fear. Guests and staff alike reported ongoing paranormal experiences, and the mansion remains a popular spot for those interested in the supernatural. The tragic history of the Lemp family and the eerie events surrounding the mansion serve as a chilling reminder of the past, making it a place where the boundary between history and the supernatural is hauntingly blurred. Robert Greene left the Lemp Mansion with a heavy heart and an unsettling feeling that lingered long after he had departed. The photograph he had taken, capturing the shadowy figure near the mirror, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, hinting at the mansion's lingering horrors. As he reviewed his notes and photos back at his office, he found himself increasingly drawn to the mansion's tragic history and the enigmatic figures who had once lived there. Despite his initial fear, Robert decided to delve deeper into the mansion's past. He contacted local historians and former employees of the Lemp Mansion, seeking more information about the family and the unexplained phenomena reported by visitors. He learned that the Lemp family's misfortunes went beyond what was commonly known. One particularly chilling story involved the Lemp family's basement, which had been converted into a storage area for the brewery. Former staff members spoke of strange sounds coming from below, even when the brewery was no longer in operation. One former employee, an elderly man named Charles, recounted a harrowing experience he had had there. He claimed he had once seen a figure resembling Frederick Lemp, who had committed suicide in the mansion, wandering among the old kegs and barrels. The figure was said to be searching for something, a look of desperation etched on its face. Driven by curiosity, Robert decided to return to the mansion, this time with the goal of exploring the basement. He arranged for a late-night visit, bringing along additional equipment: an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, recorder, an infrared camera, and a sensitive motion detector. He hoped these tools would provide concrete evidence of the paranormal activity that had been reported. When he arrived at the mansion, the night was eerily quiet. The moon cast long shadows across the property, and the mansion seemed to loom ominously against the dark sky. Robert entered through the back door, which led directly to the basement. As he descended the stairs, the familiar cold draft greeted him, and he felt the same sense of unease he had experienced before. The basement was vast, with high ceilings and rows of old wooden shelves. It was filled with the remnants of the brewery's past: rusting machinery, dusty bottles, and broken crates. Robert set up his equipment and began his investigation. The EVP recorder was placed on a wooden table near the old kegs, and the motion detector was positioned in the center of the room. As he worked, Robert began to feel a heavy presence in the basement. The temperature dropped sharply, and he could see his breath misting in the air. The motion detector suddenly beeped, indicating movement in an area where no one else was present. Robert approached the spot, his flashlight illuminating the darkness. At that moment, the EVP recorder picked up a faint but clear voice, whispering, "Help me find it." The voice was indistinct but carried a tone of desperation. Robert's heart raced as he continued to listen to the recording. He felt compelled to search for whatever the voice was referring to. He combed through the basement, focusing on the areas near the old kegs and barrels. After a thorough search, he found a hidden door behind a stack of crates. The door was partially obscured by dust and debris, and Robert had nearly missed it. He managed to pry it open, revealing a small, dimly lit room filled with old, forgotten items. In the center of the room was a large, ornate chest. Robert approached it cautiously and opened it, revealing a collection of old letters, photographs, and personal items belonging to the Lemp family. Among the items was a letter from Frederick Lemp, written just before his death. It spoke of his despair and his belief that something valuable was hidden in the mansion, something that had driven him to madness. As Robert read the letter, he felt a sudden chill and heard the faint sound of footsteps behind him. He turned, but the room was empty. The temperature dropped even further, and the oppressive presence seemed to grow stronger. He realized that whatever had been haunting the mansion was still present, still searching for the same answers he was. Determined to uncover the truth, Robert continued his investigation. The letters and photographs provided insights into the Lemp family's tragic history, but they did not reveal any concrete answers about the mysterious presence. Despite his efforts, the true nature of the haunting remained elusive. Robert left the mansion that night with a profound sense of unease. The Lemp Mansion continued to be a place of fascination and fear, its dark history and the lingering presence of the Lemp family making it a focal point for paranormal investigations. The mansion stood as a chilling reminder of the past, its secrets forever intertwined with the shadows that haunted its halls. To this day, the Lemp Mansion remains a place where the boundary between history and the supernatural is hauntingly blurred. Visitors who dare to explore its abandoned rooms sometimes report hearing whispers, seeing shadowy figures, and feeling an inexplicable coldness, as if the spirits of the Lemp family are still searching for answers in the darkness. Robert Greene's experiences at the Lemp Mansion left him with more questions than answers. The strange occurrences he witnessed and the ghostly voice on the EVP recorder suggested that the mansion held secrets far beyond what had been publicly known. Determined to uncover the truth, Robert continued his investigation, focusing on the mansion's dark past and the tragic events that had unfolded there. In the weeks following his last visit, Robert delved deeper into the Lemp family's history. He uncovered more information about the family's financial troubles and the increasing isolation that marked the later years of their lives. He discovered that Frederick Lemp's suicide was particularly disturbing. Some accounts suggested that he had been found in a room that matched the description of the hidden basement room Robert had discovered. It seemed as though Frederick had been desperately searching for something. But what? Robert decided to revisit the mansion, this time bringing along a historian specializing in the early 20th century. He hoped that the historian's expertise would provide additional context to the documents and items he had found. The historian, Dr. Emily Caldwell, agreed to join Robert for a thorough examination of the mansion's remaining rooms and artifacts. On a chilly November evening, Robert and Dr. Caldwell entered the Lemp Mansion once more. The air was heavy with anticipation as they made their way through the dimly lit hallways. They set up their equipment and began their investigation in the areas of the mansion that had remained unexplored during Robert's previous visit. Their first stop was the old library, a room filled with dusty books and antique furniture. As they combed through the shelves, Dr. Caldwell found a hidden compartment behind a row of old volumes. Inside, they discovered a stack of letters and documents that had been overlooked before. The letters were addressed to Frederick Lemp from various business partners, expressing concern over his mental state and the family's deteriorating financial situation. One letter, in particular, caught Dr. Caldwell's attention. It was written by a man named Edward Sterling, a former associate of Frederick's who had vanished mysteriously shortly after the letter was sent. The letter hinted at a secret deal between Sterling and Frederick, suggesting that the two had been involved in something illicit. As they continued their search, Robert and Dr. Caldwell came across an old, leather-bound journal tucked away in a forgotten corner of the mansion. The journal belonged to Elsa Lemp, Frederick's sister, and contained detailed accounts of her life and the family's decline. In the final entries, Elsa wrote about strange occurrences in the mansion, noises, shadows, and a growing sense of dread that seemed to envelop the house. One entry stood out, *, the house feels alive. I hear whispers in the walls, and shadows move when I am not looking. Frederick speaks of a secret, but I fear it is more than he can bear. I do not know what he seeks, but I believe it is something that should never be found. *. As Robert and Dr. Caldwell reviewed the journal, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and they felt an inexplicable coldness. The lights flickered, and a low, mournful sound echoed through the mansion. The EVP recorder picked up faint whispers, but the words were indistinct and unsettling. Determined to explore further, Robert and Dr. Caldwell returned to the basement. They examined the hidden room and the old chest again, trying to decipher the cryptic letter and the items they had found. Dr. Caldwell hypothesized that the mansion's dark history might be tied to a hidden stash of valuable items or evidence of criminal activities. As they sifted through the old documents and photographs, Dr. Caldwell noticed something peculiar. Among the items was a photograph of a hidden compartment in the basement, similar to the one Robert had discovered. The photograph seemed to suggest that there was another concealed area in the basement. Following this lead, Robert and Dr. Caldwell searched the basement meticulously. Behind a stack of old kegs, they found a hidden panel in the wall. After considerable effort, they managed to pry it open, revealing a narrow passage that led to an even more concealed room. Inside the room, they found a large, ornate safe. The safe was old and rusted but still intact. With great effort, they managed to open it, revealing its contents: bundles of old documents, ledgers, and a small wooden box. The documents detailed the Lemp family's financial dealings and hidden assets, including illicit activities that had been kept secret. The wooden box contained a collection of valuable jewels and a letter from Edward Sterling, detailing his blackmail scheme and the reasons for his disappearance. The discovery of these items shed light on the dark dealings that had plagued the Lemp family. It became clear that Frederick's mental state and the family's tragedies were intertwined with these hidden secrets. The mansion's haunting presence seemed to be linked to the unresolved and unethical activities that had taken place within its walls. As Robert and Dr. Caldwell left the Lemp Mansion for the final time, they felt a sense of closure, though the mansion's eerie atmosphere remained. The Lemp Mansion stood as a silent witness to its own dark history, its secrets finally brought to light but still cloaked in mystery. Visitors and investigators who ventured near the mansion continued to report strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions, as if the spirits of the past were still seeking resolution. The Lemp Mansion, with its tragic history and haunting legacy, remains a poignant reminder of the shadows that linger in places once filled with power and prosperity. The echoes of the past continue to resonate within its walls, casting a long and haunting shadow over those who dare to uncover its secrets. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. After uncovering the hidden secrets of the Lemp Mansion, Robert Greene and Dr. Emily Caldwell believed they had brought some semblance of closure to the mansion's dark history. The illicit activities and hidden treasures revealed in the basement were both shocking and revealing, providing insight into the Lemp family's tragic downfall. However, as they left the mansion for the final time, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unfinished. Months later, strange occurrences continued to plague the mansion. Despite their revelations, visitors and staff reported that the haunting presence seemed to intensify. Ghostly figures, unexplained noises, and cold spots became more frequent, leading Robert and Dr. Caldwell to reconsider their conclusions. Determined to understand the full extent of the haunting, Robert and Dr. Caldwell decided to conduct one final investigation. They returned to the Lemp Mansion one last time, prepared for an extended stay. They planned to spend a full night in the mansion, hoping to communicate with the spirits and uncover any remaining mysteries. As dusk settled over the mansion, Robert and Dr. Caldwell set up their equipment in the areas where the supernatural activity had been most intense. They positioned cameras, EVP recorders, and motion sensors throughout the mansion, including the basement and the old library. The night began uneventfully, with only the usual creaks and groans of the old building. However, as midnight approached, the atmosphere in the mansion grew increasingly charged. The temperature dropped sharply, and the air became thick with tension. The cameras captured strange anomalies: flickering lights, shadowy figures, and unexplained disturbances. At around 1 a.m., Robert and Dr. Caldwell decided to focus their attention on the attic, the area where Elsa Lemp's journal had mentioned unsettling experiences. The attic was a cold, dusty space filled with old furniture and forgotten items. As they set up their equipment, they could feel an oppressive presence in the room. Using a spirit box, a device that scans radio frequencies to pick up potential spirit voices, they began to ask questions. They inquired about the Lemp family's tragic history, hoping to gain insight into the unresolved issues that might be contributing to the haunting. The spirit box crackled to life, and they heard a faint, distressed voice saying, "Help us find peace." The voice was barely audible, but it was filled with sorrow and desperation. Robert and Dr. Caldwell exchanged worried glances, realizing that the spirits might be seeking resolution. Determined to provide that resolution, they decided to conduct a séance in the attic. They arranged candles in a circle and sat down, attempting to communicate directly with the spirits. As they focused their energy on contacting the Lemp family, the atmosphere grew even more intense. The temperature dropped, and the room seemed to fill with a palpable sense of unease. During the séance, a cold wind swept through the attic, extinguishing the candles. In the darkness, Robert and Dr. Caldwell heard whispers and the sound of shuffling footsteps. They used a flashlight to illuminate the room, revealing an apparition of a woman in period clothing. The figure appeared to be searching for something, her expression one of deep anguish. The apparition began to speak, her voice a haunting echo. "We are trapped. We need the truth to be known." Edward Sterling. The secret. Realizing that Edward Sterling's role in the family's downfall might be crucial, Robert and Dr. Caldwell recalled the documents they had found in the basement. They knew that Sterling had been involved in blackmail and deceit, but they had yet to uncover the full extent of his actions. They decided to investigate the documents further, focusing on any references to Sterling. They discovered that Sterling had hidden additional evidence related to his dealings with the Lemp family, including compromising letters and financial records. It appeared that Sterling had been blackmailing the Lemp family for years, exacerbating their financial woes and contributing to their eventual downfall. In an effort to resolve the haunting, Robert and Dr. Caldwell arranged for the documents and evidence to be publicly disclosed, ensuring that Sterling's actions were exposed and the Lemp family's suffering was acknowledged. They hoped that this revelation would bring some form of justice and peace to the restless spirits trapped within the mansion. As they completed their investigation, the atmosphere in the Lemp Mansion seemed to shift. The oppressive presence that had loomed over the house for so long appeared to lift, and the cold spots and mysterious noises diminished. The mansion's haunting, once a source of intense fear, now seemed to be calming. Robert and Dr. Caldwell left the Lemp Mansion with a sense of accomplishment, knowing they had done what they could to bring closure to the tragic story. The mansion remained a place of historical significance and ghostly intrigue, but its dark past was now more openly acknowledged. The Lemp Mansion continued to attract visitors and paranormal enthusiasts, who reported a lessening of the previous supernatural activity. While the mansion still held an aura of mystery and historical significance, it was no longer overshadowed by the same sense of dread that had once pervaded its halls. In the end, the Lemp Mansion stood as a testament to the enduring nature of history and the supernatural, a place where the echoes of the past could be heard, but where the restless spirits had finally found some measure of peace. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.